Let's make some vegan chicken pot pie. Welcome back to the Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show, where we make plant-based cooking easy. I'm Jill, and this month the winning vote from our supporting members was for this chicken pot pie. Well, chicken. So we are going to just jump right in. I've already got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And we're going to start with one onion that I've just diced fairly small. I'm going to start sauteing that. And I don't use any oil in my pan. You don't really need it as you're cooking the rest of these vegetables. If it starts getting just a little bit dry, you can just use a little bit of the vegetable broth from the recipe to deglaze it a little bit. So I'm just going to saute these for a few minutes before we put in the rest of our ingredients. Okay, so our onions are done. I'm going to throw in my garlic here. This is 3 cloves of minced garlic. And then I'll tell you about the vegetables, but I'll tell you about the chicken replacement that we're going to use. These are Butler's soy curls that I've already put 1.5 cups of vegetable broth in here with a bay leaf. I'm going to take that bay leaf out. And some thyme, a 1/2 teaspoon of thyme and a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. And we are just going to throw that in there. Oops, there's that other bay leaf. And you want to get that soaking before you cook it. I did it about 1/2 hour ago, just so it can soak up some of those juices before it goes into the pan. Then I've got about 1 cup of mushrooms, so roughly about 4 ounces of sliced mushrooms. 1 cup of, these are just frozen peas. 2 stalks of celery that I've diced up pretty fine. 2 small carrots, the same, just small little bite-sized chunks. And then 2 about medium-sized potatoes. Same thing, just cut up into bite-sized chunks. 1 cup of vegetable broth. And this is a low-sodium vegetable broth. And then 2 tablespoons of a low-sodium tamari. And then we'll just, a generous amount of cracked pepper. Okay, so now we're going to let this cook for roughly about 15 minutes while we're getting our crust ready. So I'm going to put this back on the stove so we can clear out this area, and I'm going to put the lid on it just to keep all those juices in there. We don't want all that juice to evaporate because that is going to become the gravy. So I'm going to clear this out and get my crust ingredients, and then I'll show you how to do that. While we're waiting for that, I'd like to share some background on our show. The Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show is crowd-funded, which means these free weekly recipe videos, along with our entire catalog of free printable recipes on our website, plantbasedcookingshow.com, and our Plant-Based Cooking Made Easy cookbook series, are all made possible in part by the generous patronage of our supporting membership community. So if you love our recipes, I invite you to join us on our mission to make plant-based cooking easy, and follow the link in the description to become a supporting member today. There's no denying the plant-based diet is a nutrient powerhouse, but did you know there are a handful of hard-to-get nutrients even well-crafted diets are often lacking? The latest research suggests that complementing your diet with a few specific vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s will help boost your energy and keep you thriving for the long term. That's why my daily health routine includes Complement Essential. Complement Essential contains the 8 critical nutrients lacking from most plant-based diets in dosages optimized specifically for us. As a special discount for our viewers, just use code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout to save 15% off of your order. Okay, now on for this delicious crust. We're going to start out, I've got 1 cup of organic rolled oats that I'm going to just blitz here in my blender just to make it into a flour. And it can be kind of a rougher grind flour, that's fine. Okay, there we go. So into the bowl. And then I have 1 cup of almond flour, a 1/2 cup of flax meal, or ground flax, a 1/2 cup of tapioca flour, and if you don't have tapioca flour, you could use arrowroot powder or even some cornstarch would work. And then 2 teaspoons of baking powder. We're just going to mix those together before we put in our sweet potato. Yes, I said sweet potato. That is what is going to be the binder for this. And it makes it so rich and delicious. You just aren't going to believe it. So there's no butter, you know, this is taking the place of what butter would be really. So this is 1.5 cups of baked sweet potato. This is a white Japanese sweet potato. You could also use a red sweet potato. Those are fine too, or orange. They just might make the batter or the dough just a little bit stickier. This tends to be a little bit drier of a sweet potato. Then I'm just using my pastry cutter. You could use a fork or even your hands would work just to massage this through until it's all well mixed together. Okay, there we go. See how it just looks like a regular, it kind of looks like a regular pie crust dough. All right, so I'm gonna grab some parchment paper, my rolling pin, and then my little chicken pot pie or pot pie pans. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so now on to the fun part. Now this part is completely up to you. I got these cute little, I think they're 5-inch little pie crust or pie plates. They're just adorable. You could use the little metal ones, that's great too, or you could just make one big pot pie in a regular 9-inch pie plate. But I just thought these were so adorable, and that's what I remember from my childhood. My mom was a big pot pie fan, so we always had pot pies around those, but those yucky frozen ones, you know. All right, so with your dough, you're gonna take about 2/3 of it, and that's what we're gonna be using for the bottom. So you're just gonna kind of mash it down gently first on a piece of parchment paper, and I've got my rolling pin here. And you're gonna put another piece of parchment on top, just so we can roll it out so it doesn't stick to the rolling pin really bad, because this isn't a regular flour. If you just rolled this out with your rolling pin, it would be all just stuck all over the place. So you're gonna roll this out pretty thin. You don't want it to be really very thick because there's gonna be a top layer also. And if it's too thick, then you just kind of have too much crust per filling ratio. So I don't know what that means on thickness, probably like less than 1/4 inch thick. And if you're gonna do the little pie plates, it makes about 4. And then, you know, one regular size 9-inch pan. And you don't have to roll this out round, you know, it can be a rectangle because you're gonna be cutting these out to fit into your little pie pans. Okay, there we go. We're gonna start with that. All right, I'm just gonna show you the one. So I usually just turn them upside down like this, and then I cut around them just a little bit bigger than what they are, just to give you some wiggle room. I'm gonna turn that back over. And then to get them off of the paper, I kind of put my hand on the top like this. Because it is kind of thin, it breaks very easily. And then I transfer it onto my little pan like that. And this part, you just kind of have to shimmy it down there into the pan really easily. And if it breaks or cracks, that's fine. You can just kind of mush it back together. It sticks together really well. It's not going to crumble to pieces. So this part just takes a little bit of patience and time. And you want to make sure you fill your, you know, if you get a crack down in here, make sure you fill that in so that the filling doesn't like ooze in and under the crust, because then you aren't going to be able to get that out of that pie pan. And then you're just going to leave your edges kind of loose up here, because once we fill the filling, then we're going to put the little top piece on there, and then all this edging will be cut off. And I would suggest just doing that, making 3 of these to start with, because all of that cut off excess is going to be used for your 4th pie. So just make 3 of these, and then I'll show you how to finish the tops. Okay, so now that I've got the bottoms of my crust done, I'm gonna show you how to finish off the filling. So the filling is done cooking. It took roughly, 15 minutes. You don't want it to be completely cooked. You want it still to have a little bit of firmness to the vegetables because it's gonna be cooking in the oven for a bit more time too. So for the gravy, I'm gonna use a half a cup of vegetable broth and 2 tablespoons of arrowroot powder as the thickener. But I'm gonna mix that into the vegetable broth first before I put it in there, so that we don't end up with any clumps of arrowroot powder. Just like that. Okay. Then you're gonna kind of just pour it in there and then stir it around. And that residual heat will thicken it up just nicely. You don't have to have this on the heat to be able to thicken it. That's perfect. Oh, it smells so good. Okay, so for our little pies here. So you're gonna take one, it's already in there. Put a few scoops in there. You wanna get it right up to the top, not billowing over, because if you get it too full, then when they go into the oven, they're gonna drip and it's gonna make a smoky mess in your oven. And you can always put a tray below them if you're worried about them spilling over. Just like that. And I already cut out one of the tops, and roughly, just close to the same size of this, because you're gonna kind of crimp it together in the end. So it's very forgiving. And then you wanna kind of crimp your edges together, and that's completely up to you how rustic or how fancy you want that edge to be, just like a regular pie. But you kind of just want to get them crimped together, and I'm just pinching them together gently with my fingers. And then you'll want to just poke a couple, maybe like 3 little holes in the top, just so that steam can escape. And if there are any juices that bubble up, it'll come out here instead of over the edge. All right, I'm gonna finish making these, and then I'm gonna get them into the oven. They're gonna bake for, like I said before, my oven is on 350, and they're gonna bake for 35 minutes. Okay guys, they are out of the oven. Come on in for a look. They're so adorable. So for the last about minute or so, I turned on my broil just to get a nice little brown on the surface of them. So now I'm just gonna let them cool for a while, and then I'll meet you at the table for a taste. All right, let's dig into this little guy. Oh, it's so cute. I hate to cut into it. Okay. I mean, look at that. It all sticks together. Oh, okay. But it's all about the taste, right? Ah. Delicious. Come on back next week for another great recipe.